Hello, everybody. This is Miss Baker's Grammar PowerPoint series. So every one of them begins with this, which is me, my dog Ajax, my cat Azu, my cat Ipa, my dog Kiva, my dog Merlin. I need to change some of that up and add some more in. So each time I go to one of these, what I would like for you to do is to actually pull up the PowerPoint or the slide presentation on Classroom so that you can go through it with me, and then have a piece of paper and a writing utensil ready so that you can work on it with us. The rest of us will be doing the same thing. There will be exercises in each of them for you to do as you work. Those will need to be turned in when you come in to class. All right, so let's begin. As a review, and just to remind you, you're always expected to take notes on what we do. As a review, let's go through the 8 parts of speech. We'll be covering each one of these separately, but they are noun, pronoun, adjective, verb, adverb, preposition, conjunction, interjection. Now, if you are a color person, which I am, you'll note that the noun is done in red, the pronoun in pink, the adjective in a bluish color, verb in green, adverb in more of a fluorescent or mint green, preposition in purple, conjunction in yellow, and interjection in an aqua. Now, the noun and the pronoun and the adjective all go together. The verb and the adverb go together. The preposition and conjunctions are kind of to themselves, but they're similar in the way that they function. And then interjections are a world unto themselves. So to begin, we start with the noun. The noun is the first of the 8 parts of speech. When you learn how to speak, the first words that you speak are nouns. You can point to them. They're things. Now, nouns can be used in different ways, but they are typically thought of as common or proper, abstract or concrete. So you're going to have to identify common and proper. We're going to talk about what abstract and concrete mean. Nouns can be used as subjects of sentences, direct objects. You don't have to worry about what that means yet, but do note that it says object. So an object would be a noun. Predicate nominatives. Ooh, that's a scary term. You don't have to know what it means either, but I will tell you that a predicate is all the words that function as a verb. And if you look at the word nominative, it has nom or name in it, so that kind of makes sense. Objects of prepositions. We haven't gotten to prepositions yet, but notice that the noun is the object of that. And indirect objects. Again, we have a noun as an object. There are nouns of address, so you would be addressing someone. Objects of infinitives. Don't worry about infinitive, but notice that it does say object. And gerund nouns. You won't have to know what that means. The main thing is know that they can be used in all different kinds of ways. But we are going to concentrate on common or proper, abstract or concrete. All right, so nouns name people, places, things, or ideas. When you were in 3rd grade, nouns named people, places, and things. That's because your brain had actually not grown to the point that you could understand an abstract idea. You could spell it, but you wouldn't understand it. So once you got older and your brain was actually able to understand the idea of an idea, you added in ideas like grief, democracy, courage, and obedience to your list of nouns. So if we think about a brain kind of looks like your hand. right? You put it together, those are the parts, and then it comes together at the end. If you look at this part of your brain where it meets the other, in the brain, like you have the left and the right parts, right? In the brain, there is a webbing that goes down the middle of the two sides of the brain, and it bonds it together. The older you get, the thicker that webbing gets, until you're in your somewhere in the neighborhood of 30. And then it's stable for a little while, and then it starts to get thinner. What that webbing does is that webbing functions as a superhighway for ideas to go back and forth from one side of the brain to the other. One side of the brain is for your mathematical type of skills. The other side is for your creative type of skills. So for those two to speak to each other is very important. The thicker that webbing gets, the more of those thoughts can speed back and forth, and the faster they can go. So when you're younger and you don't have a very thick webbing, it's very difficult for an older person to explain effectively the idea of grief or democracy or courage or obedience. Once you get older, it's much easier to explain those things. And we understand that courage is a concept, but it is also a noun. So if we look at this, people like Mr. Johnson, mother, woman, Maria. So it doesn't have to be someone's name. It can just be a concept involving that person, or you could even talk about the sex of that person. It could be a name, a first name, or it could be a name, a last name. It could be the whole name altogether. Places, we have simple city or town. Home is a place. But then we also have places like Texas. You can't touch the whole thing at one time. Or Canada, even a country. Things are a little bit easier. This would probably be what you would learn in conjunction with people when you're first learning about nouns, because you can touch these things and they're fairly small. Well, a house is not small, but a ring. A teacher could show their ring to a student and say, look, here's a ring. This is a thing. A shoe, a table, a desk, a month, a little bit different, or a light, not that you'd want to touch it. Grief, democracy. How do you explain these things to a third grader? Well, you could say grief means sad, but that doesn't express the depth of that idea. So now it's your turn. I want you to take out your piece of paper, and I want you to create this chart on it. If you need to pause the video here so that you can do that now. Because you need to have an area, and you don't have to do it in squares. You can do it in lists. But you need to have an area to write down people, another for places, another for things, and another for ideas. So I want you to list them as people, places, things, ideas. If you'd rather do columns, that's fine. Now, time yourself. Take 2 minutes to write down as many nouns as possible in each of the 4 categories. You have to have at least one in every category, and you cannot use the example ones that I did. Ready, set, go. 2 minutes. 1 minute left. $30. 15. 10. 5. All right, put your pencil down and count your nouns. Now remember, you were supposed to have at least one in every category. So count them up and write that number down on the side of the page. If you didn't get a lot, not important. This is you testing your own brain. I would like to see you put down a lot, but I don't want you to fudge and go over 2 minutes. I also don't want you to fudge and write down a whole bunch that you didn't think of at the time. It's just a little bit of a brain exercise. All right, so now we're going to look at concrete and abstract nouns. Concrete nouns are nouns that can be touched. So anything that you can touch is a concrete noun, just like concrete. Abstract nouns, we kind of talked about that earlier because they are the things that third graders don't really understand. Love, bitterness, happiness, humor. There should be a lot of you out there who came up with one on your own, and maybe even more than one. Now, on your list of nouns, I want you to circle 5 concrete nouns. And then I want you to create or add to your abstract noun list so that you have a total of at least 5. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If you need to pause at this point so that you can do that, do so. All right, common and proper nouns. You're still going to use your list, so hang on to it. But let's look at what common and proper mean. Common and proper nouns, nouns that begin with a capital letter and are naming things such as a proper name, I know you've heard that before, a title, or referring to a particular person, place, thing, or idea are called proper nouns. That means that there's one of them, or at least hopefully there should only be one in a room. Common nouns do not begin with a capital letter. They are less specific. So here's what I want you to think about. How many of you have ever been in Walmart and you hear someone yell mommy or mom, and all the women in the vicinity turn around? That would be a common noun. All the moms in the vicinity are going to answer to mom. However, think about your mother or a friend of yours who might be a mother, or your grandmother, or any mother on a TV sitcom. There's one name for that mother. Now, generally, there are not going to be several people with that exact same name in a vicinity, although there might be. So what we look at is we look at what the common is, but if we want to get more specific and we want our mother to answer, we don't yell mother, we yell Jill. That's my mom's name, or whatever the mother's name is, so that we get the attention of that particular person. So here let's look at how that can be done. So a country is common, but England is specific. Write down a country that you can think of that's not England. Language is common, but if you learn a language, you might learn German or not. Write down another language. We talked about mother. You might be referring to Mother Teresa. I might be referring to my mother Jill, or another mother. So write down a mother's name. If you yell brother, or you talk about your brother, you can use a common noun like brother, but if you want to be more specific, name your brother by his proper name. In this case, I have Sammy. I don't have a brother. If you have a brother, write that brother's name down, or write down the name of someone's brother that you know of. Teacher could be anyone. I'm sure all of you have more than just one teacher this year. So a teacher could be any one of them, but I want you to write down a specific one. So here I have Ms. Holstrom is the teacher to whom I am referring. Some of you may have a pastor or a priest or a vicar or a preacher, all different kinds of terms that mean the same thing. In this case, we have the specific proper name, Pastor Hill. So I want you to write down a country, a language, a mother, a brother, a teacher, and a pastor's name. Then I want you to go into your list, and I want you to choose 5 of your common nouns, 5 of the nouns that you wrote down that are just common nouns, and I want you to create or name a proper for each one of them. For instance, I have a dog. If I had written down dog for my common noun, I would be speaking about specifically my dog Merlin. I could also be talking about my dog Ajax, or my dog Fergus, or Dharma, or Mumu, or Kiva. Lots of dogs. But the common is dog, the proper is the name of the dog. So if you need to take a few minutes to do that, pause the video now and do so. Nouns of address. Now, a noun of address can be a title, or it could be a proper name. It is the term that you are using to get the attention of or address a specific person. Now, remember I said that we were going to work on some other things along with each one of the parts of speech. So in this case, what we're looking at is we are looking at a comma rule that goes along with a noun. Here's the rule. If you look at these first 3, Cindy, where or why are you here? Cindy is the noun of address. We are addressing someone named Cindy. Notice that when we are addressing Cindy, because Cindy's name is at the beginning of the question, we put a comma immediately after her name. Now I want you to look at why. If you just said, why are you here, to someone, that would be a perfectly legitimate question. It's complete thought. You don't have to worry about putting someone's name. But if you want to address Cindy specifically, say Cindy crashed her own surprise party, you could say, Cindy, why are you here? So Cindy is very specific, and we put a comma after it because it's not necessary for a complete thought within that question. All right, second sentence. We have a noun of address, judge. Got to be careful when you're addressing a judge. But this person said, I didn't understand, judge, that I had to tell the truth. Not a very smart person. So here is the comma rule that goes along with plopping the noun of address down in the middle of this sentence. Notice that I could say I didn't understand that I had to tell the truth. That would be a perfectly legitimate sentence. It's a complete thought. But if I want to address it to the judge, and I can't remember his name or her name, I would need to, with my noun of address, include the comma rule, which is if you put the noun of address in the middle of a sentence, you have to have a comma on either side, because you could pick that up and throw it away, and the sentence itself would be fine without it. It wouldn't be specific, but it would be fine. So when you put the noun of address in the middle, you have to have a comma here, and you have to have a comma here. Now, if we put the noun of address at the end of a sentence, like this, don't you dare leave this room, which would be fine, but then we're specifically addressing Kelly, we put the comma in front of the noun of address. If it's at the beginning, it's after the noun of address, but if it's at the end, the ending punctuation is at the end. We want to show that this portion of the sentence is fine without the noun of address. So what we do is, don't you dare leave this room. That's where the ending punctuation would be if we didn't put in the noun of address. So instead we put in a comma, and then we plop on the noun of address, Kelly, and the ending punctuation. In this case, because we're ticked off at Kelly, we put in an exclamation point. So I want you now to pause the video, and I want you to do the rest of these, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Each one of these has a noun of address, so I want you to write down the noun of address, and I want you to note where the commas go. So I want you to, for instance, if we were doing number 1, Cindy, comma, or 2, comma, judge, comma, or 3, comma, Kelly, exclamation point. So if you need to pause the video to do that, please do that now. So here are the actual rules. If the noun of address comes at the beginning of a sentence, it is followed by the comma. If it's in the middle, the commas are before and after the noun of address. And if the noun of address is at the end, you put the comma in front of it because you have to have an ending punctuation. I want you to do this so that you have practice in ways to study. So either turn your sheet of paper over, pull out a different one, flip to a different one in your notebook, but I don't want you to be able to see what you've already written down. Pause if you need to. So the first thing I want you to do is you're going to take 2 minutes and you're going to write down everything that you can remember that you've learned about nouns so far. Ready, set, go. Write down anything and everything. Keep going. 1 minute. "30 seconds. Keep writing. Write down anything and everything. "15. 10. 5. Okay, stop. Now, looking at what you have written, I want you to, for number 6, to flip back and forth between what you did and what you did not remember. Now I want you to write down everything that you did not remember that we went over. What's interesting is if you will self-test before you take any kind of exam, and you will do this, you write down everything that you can remember about whatever your exam is, and then, without looking at your notes, then you compare your notes to what you've already written down, and you write down the things that you did not remember. Those are the things that are more important. The things you remembered, you're going to remember again. But the things that you did not remember are what you need to study, and you need to make note of those things. So pause if you need to do that. Part of, and I will only put this in here once, any test or quiz that you take for me is that you read and correctly follow all the instructions. Don't ask me what the instructions are. Read them and do exactly what they describe. So if they describe a list, that doesn't mean that you have to write down the whole sentence, for instance. So read exactly what they say and take down exactly what they say and do exactly what they say. Another part of every test, and I want you to jot this down at the end of your paper, just so I know that you've listened to the whole thing, is that your phone and watch, any communication device, has to be zipped up inside a backpack or turned upside down and on the floor. Write that down, turn that in with your paper, and you will earn your points for this part. Thanks. Bye.